So I saw this post on another platform of this new beginner trying to trim the perfect half square triangle, and she's very frustrated. And so I left a quick comment. It's a very easy fix, and so I thought I'd do a quick little tutorial for anyone who is new to half square triangles trying to trim them. And it's super easy. Let me show you how. All right, I'm trimming up about 1 million of them, but our goal here is to get the points here in each of the corners. And so when we cut our half square triangles and they end up like that where it's in the corner, but they're not going to be the perfect square because triangles are kind of on the bias and they're a little stretchy. And so when we press them, they're kind of stretchy and wonky. So when we want them to be a perfect size, so for instance, this is a little bit over 6 and I actually want them to be 5.5. And so the way that we do it is we work with our seam. This is a perfect 45-degree angle. And so I'm going to use the 45-degree angle here that's on my ruler. And so I'm going to put that seam on my 45-degree angle. And I'm just going to make sure that whatever I do, I keep that on the seam. And then I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. And wherever I move it, I want to make sure, so I want mine 5.5. I'll make sure that my 5.5 stays within my fabric. Now, because I write my patterns for beginners, I always make sure that I write my patterns so that my beginning square is a little bit bigger. And a big frustration for me looking at other patterns is that other designers don't do that. They make it so that as soon as you open it up, that's supposed to be the perfect size. It's supposed to be a perfect 5.5. Well, you know, we're human. And so sometimes your fabric isn't, you know, the perfect thing, or maybe you didn't perfectly iron it with starch and it's a little bit small or whatever. And that irks me. So I write mine just a little bit bigger so people have a little bit of wiggle room. So let's say this is going to be 5.5. I'm going to keep this angle here, make sure that 5.5 is within my fabric lines. And so I can scoot it down a little bit here. Keep that line there, put your hand in the middle and like really hold it down. And then we're going to cut along here. You can move that out of the way and then cut along here and move that out of the way. Now you have a squared edge here. Whoops, I should put my blade down. Keep that square, okay? Now you can lift it and you can see this side is uncut and this side is cut. Then you can twist this around here and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna keep this line along there and we're gonna put this where it's a 5.5 and this is a 5.5 there. And we're gonna make sure that this is a 5.5 up here and it stays 5.5, 5.5, 5.5 all the way down, 5.5 all the way across. Make sure that this 45-degree line is like that. We're gonna put our hand in the middle again and we're gonna trim up the edge here. And I'm not a huge stickler for it has to be exactly in the corner. You know, close enough it's okay. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you know, within that seam allowance, pretty darn close. So there, it's perfectly in the corner there, pretty darn close there. So I'm perfectly happy with that. And then that way, all of these are gonna be 5.5. And when you put them all together like this, then they're all going to be the same size. And so if you leave them like this, uncut, they're not going to perfectly go together. And that's why it's important when you're doing half square triangles that you trim them all to exactly the same size. And so we have to make them a little bit bigger, and then that way you trim them, and then all your points are going to perfectly go together. So I hope that helps. It's an easy fix. Just make sure that you're using your 45-degree line. So the person that was struggling to cut them on the other platform, she didn't realize that she had to use the 45-degree line. I don't know if she didn't have a ruler that didn't have one, but she was just kind of putting this in the corner. And so she was doing 5.5 and 5.5, or I don't know what her size was. and then she was cutting like this, and then her corners were like way off. So it was kind of like this. And then she was like, none of my diagonals are matching up. And so she was really frustrated with that. And so a lot of people were in the comments telling her, make sure you use the diagonal of your ruler. So that's a quick little fix there. I hope that helps.